Hi. Today we're going to answer a question which has again been raised, that we keep talking about financial markets. So what does this term financial markets mean? What does it include? Now, financial markets. So financial markets are markets where financial securities get traded, and financial securities, I'm talking about equity markets and so on, as well as commodity markets. You have currency markets. So all of these together comprise financial markets, and I'm going to just list them down as well. But also, when we speak about markets, we are not only talking about exchanges. So exchanges are the modern avatar, but actually a lot of trading earlier and even now in several countries in the world takes place in rings or pits, where essentially traders, buyers, sellers, investors, they gather there, and these are exchange, securities are exchanged at different prices. So there are bidders, and there's a bid and there's an ask. So there's a buyer and there's a seller, and where the price matches, the trade actually takes place. So this entire ecosystem actually comprises what we call the financial markets. Now, when we mention financial markets, the first is that you're first looking at long-term finance and short-term finance. And when you say long-term finance, you're essentially talking about capital markets. So capital markets, these capital markets comprise essentially two parts, which most of us are familiar with. One is the primary markets, and the second is the secondary markets. So the primary markets are those where companies come, they issue fresh equity shares or even bonds to investors for the first time. That is the IPO, or the initial public offer, which comprises the primary markets. On the secondary markets is where the trading takes place. So when you go to exchanges like the NSE or the Bombay Stock Exchange, and the trading which takes place there is essentially known as the secondary market, which is after the share has been listed. This is where people come to trade. They value what has been listed, and that's the price at which the trade takes place. Secondly, you have commodity markets. They've been around for a long while in India as well, but the last about 10 years has seen the emergence of electronic commodity markets, which your MCX, NCDX, and so on. Some of these exchanges are common now, and everybody is familiar with them. And commodities are essentially which get traded here. So whether it is bullion, which is gold, silver, energy, which is crude and natural gas, it could be agri commodities, and there are several in India, as well as metals like copper, aluminium, and so on. They get traded here. Then there is the short-term market, which I spoke to you about, which is the money markets. So money markets are markets where debt financing essentially gets traded. So people who want to raise short-term debt in different forms, they come to this market, and that's where it gets done. Then a very important market for every country, and increasingly India too, is the Forex or the currency market. So the Forex and currency market is where the pairs get traded. So for example, the rupee against the dollar. So how many rupees should make $1? Or against the euro, or against the pound, or how many yen are making 100 rupees. So some of these things are traded on this, and people collectively put their bid and ask price, and a market as a whole, as a consensus, keeps deciding on real-time basis what the price would be. And finally, there is the insurance market, which is essentially to do with redistribution of risk. So every time you buy an insurance, and it gets, it gets kind of collected for one cohort, and that actually gets traded in an insurance market, which is not very transparent to us. It is a very closed club which essentially does this. So just to reiterate, financial markets are capital markets, commodity markets, money markets, short-term debt financing, currency and forex markets, and as I said, insurance markets. In these 5 markets, you could say that the entire financial market universe gets covered. I hope that helps.